Hey, it's Jeff Zito. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. Past guests and episodes are online at celebrityjobber.com. Pretty much we look at celebrities and find out a little bit about who they were before they were famous. My guest today kind of broke into show business at 28 to 30 years old. He has tons of credits on TV. Martin, the Hughleys, Showtime at the Apollo, The Bernie Mac Show, Everybody Hates Chris, movies like Hollywood Shuffle, Poetic Justice, Long Shots, Norbit, and now the star of his own sitcom. We'll talk to comedian Michael Colyar about growing up, his influences, his inspirations, what he did before comedy, first job, his big break, and his new show, Highly Favored. Comedian Michael Colyar is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Hello, Michael. Good morning.
Good morning, Zito. How are you today?
I'm great, sir. Thank you. I think we've met before. I kind of think that maybe not, but I think we did. And did you ever perform in South Florida, Southwest Florida, Naples, Marco Island, that area?
I have before in those areas, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I may have met you with Captain Brian or one of those guys. I did a lot of time down there in Southwest Florida, and I saw your face, and I'm like, I know this guy. Spent time with this guy before, so now you're a big star.
Oh, how kind. No, I'm just an artist who's getting a couple of jobs, and I'm grateful, you know?
Michael, it's like before you became a star. I mean, let's just say you didn't break through until you were around 30. Am I right?
I didn't even start till I was 28.
What did you do before you were 28?
I was like bumming around trying to act. You know, I did a little local theater and stuff. And then in Chicago, I was around 28 years old. I was starving to death as an actor. And my friends convinced me that they say I'm funny, so they say you should try street performance. So I would stand in State Street and tell jokes and pass my hat. And I did pretty doggone good until winter came. And wasn't nobody trying to, so I packed everything that would fit in my car. I sold everything else. And I drove to California, and I found Venice Beach, where I ended up doing comedy for 9 years, from 86 to 95. I would do 5 one-hour shows every Saturday and Sunday without fail. And it was amazing. I did like 6 figures a year, telling jokes on the weekend. And along that time, all kind of other people would come and see me on Venice and invite me to come and be on their show, like Robert Townsend put me in his first movie, which was my first movie, Hollywood Shuffle. Although I only had one line. My line was, no, it's a muffler. Now, it was just one line. It was my line, and they gave me $1,004, and I joined the Screen Actors Guild.
Wow. Very cool.
So, yeah, that is great. And I got a series now. I've never been the lead in a sitcom before, though I've been in dozens of sitcoms, but never the lead. And this time I'm number one on the call sheet. Come on, somebody.
Michael, so tell me about growing up in Chicago a little bit. Tell me about your mom and dad and what they did for work.
Well, first of all, it's so interesting you asked that question because I'm currently doing a play in 100 cities called Michael Colyar's Mama. And it's called Michael Colyar's Mama because it ain't about your mama. It's about my mama, Mary Lena Smith, and how I was raised in the projects of Chicago. I grew up in the Robert Taylor homes, 4352 South State Park 909. So my dad was a presser. He ironed clothes. He was a tailor, and a really good one in Chicago. And my mom was at Spiegel's. Do you remember Spiegel's Catalog House?
I sure do remember Spiegel's.
My mom got her first job at Spiegel's, and she had to go get it because my dad was drinking up all the money. And she was like, I got to do better for my kids. And she was a mom raising 5 little boys.
Wow.
But she went to Sears and bought out her first car. And you can just see our life change. She got us out the projects, took us out to Morgan Park. But the whole time, I've always been trying to hustle. I remember in the projects, and I was like maybe 8, I would go across the street and buy 2 for penny candies, then come back to the project and set up a little cardboard box and make a little store and sell them at a penny each. So at 8 years old, I was already making 100% profit on product. I was like, whoa, this feels natural, you know? But I was always funny. And then we did all the plays in high school. I was a lead every year. And I thought that was what my calling was. But eating regularly is really my calling.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
So, Michael, who was your inspiration? Like when you're in high school, you're telling me, you know, you got into the plays, you wanted to be an actor, you went into comedy. I mean, where did like show business? Who gave you that sparkle? Was there somebody that really inspired you that you really kind of tried to follow?
Well, the truth is Eddie Murphy, and that was 1984. Eddie Murphy was about 23 years old then, and he had already done Trading Places, 48 Hours, the first Beverly Hills Cops. He had the biggest concert and the biggest video out called Raw, and he single-handedly saved Saturday Night Live because they was closing their doors. And he came on, became a star, and they hadn't closed the doors yet. And he could wear the heck out of a red leather suit. And he got all that just telling jokes. And I was funny back then, but I was like, I didn't know you could make that kind of money. I said, shoot, I better get out the mustard and catch up. So I went and got me some Red Fox albums, and I went in my mama's basement where I was living anyway, and I would stand in the mirror and play Red Fox albums over and over and say them in the mirror until I could say them like I had made them up myself. I could say it like I was just talking. Even to this day, I still use Red Fox jokes. You know, I stick one in here because I don't think old jokes should die. I don't think an old joke should die just because the person that wrote it did. He can't use it no more. You know, Red Fox created 75 comedy albums. You know how many jokes that is? Are we supposed to throw all those jokes away? I think not. I tell them at work, you're a hero and you pay no royalties.
That's right. Michael, tell me what your first job was, very first job, and I'm not talking about inside show business. I mean the very first honest paycheck that you ever made.
A grocery boy at Star Food Center, which was the grocery store at my projects. Right there, we had the big grocery store, and my first job was helping ladies and old men take their groceries home to the projects. So they'd have the carts lined up, and I would push the carts over there and help them take them to their house, and that was like my first gig, and it was a real paying gig. And then my second gig, I got into the catering business. I remember that because I was 12 years old, and a guy named Michael C., S-E-A-Y, Michael C., would hire me to help him cater for the richest black people in Chicago. And I was only 12, but he taught me all kind of stuff about how to set the table, how to do service, how to talk to people. And he was giving me $5 an hour. And at 12, I thought that was $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, and he always made sure I got in 30, 40 hours a week. So that was my second job. Yeah.
Wow. Michael, what do you think it was? Like when we talked about you weren't even in the comedy business until you were, 30 years old. You were trying to become an actor, banging around a little bit. But what do you think it was, like your big break, the thing that changed life for you overnight?
That would probably have to be my first big thing was Star Search. I won Star Search, and that was a fluke, because I was bumming around trying to do comedy. I would go to the Improv in Hollywood, and they'd give me like 3 minutes here, 4 minutes there, and then I got an audition for the Pat Sajak show. Now, Zito, do you remember when Pat Sajak had a late night show?
Yes, I do. Very vaguely, but I do remember that. Yes.
It was very brief, Z. It was very brief. It was like maybe 4 months. But he was trying to be the new Johnny Carson. And so he had this show, and I was invited to audition. I auditioned at the Improv, and it had to be absolutely clean. And I did a brilliant, clean show. He didn't like me at all. But as I was leaving the building, a guy came up and grabbed my arm, a little short, little white guy. And he said, hey, would you like to be on Star Search? And I said, dude, I auditioned for Star Search 3 times already. He said, man, you want to be on Star Search or not? And I said, yes, sir. Turns out he was Sam Riddle, the executive producer of Star Search. And this is why I tell artists coming up, when you're performing on stage, you perform like your life depends on it. I don't care if it ain't but 8 people in the room. Like there was 8 people in that room in audition. A lot of artists do a less set if they don't feel like they got the right crowd. Oh, ain't that many people. It don't matter. It always matters because you don't know who's sitting in that room. It could be 8 people in that room, and one of them can have the power to change your life, can write a check that could change everything, and that was my situation. Sam Riddle was just sitting there on a humbug and saw me and put me on Star Search.
Wow.
Needless to say, I won it. I'd actually like to say I'm the first black person to win on Star Search. I won that and gave half to the homeless, and then went back to Venice Beach where I was doing comedy and told more jokes.
Wow.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
You know, I was watching the Saturday Night Live special, and it like every one of the guys that tried out that was auditioning for Saturday Night Live, before they went on stage, they went to every single one of them. They go, okay, listen, Lauren he's not going to laugh, and like nobody's going to laugh. So don't take that personally. Just kind of plow through it. And I guess that, you know, when you were saying perform like your life depended on it, to me it kind of reminded me of that what those guys went through on Saturday Night Live, because you got one shot, dude. You know, so here you go. You're going to perform like your life depended on it. And then you can't say you left anything behind you, you know?
Exactly. If you put in your best work, even if you don't get it, you know you did your best, and something will come from it. Even if it's not the thing you went to get, something else will come from it because you put your best foot forward.
Yeah, I think that's a cool story, and I didn't know that about you and Star Search. Now, tell me a little bit about this new show, which is on Impact, and it's called Highly Favored. And you mentioned earlier in our conversation that you're the lead. This is the first time for you. I remember you in Norbit. I remember you in all these other movies, but you're the star in this show. So how does it feel to be the star of a show? Any more pressure? And of course, tell me a little bit about Highly Favored.
Well, first of all, it's fantastic to be number one on the call sheet. Right now, they have a show on, I think HBO or Showtime, called Number One on the cast list, on the sheet. I'm number one, and it means a lot. But it's my first time as a sitcom star. Now, 2 years ago, I did a movie called Hollywood Heartbreak, and that was the first time I actually starred in a film and had to carry a film, and I was terrified because there was so many lines. And so I called Samuel Jackson, and I said, Sam, how do you memorize all of this stuff, dude? I don't even know. Is there a secret? Do you pinch yourself at every other word? What did he said? There is no secret. The secret to the success is to just keep repeating it. Just keep doing the lines over and over and over till you get them, and there is no shortcut. And I'm terrified, he said, but also don't try to memorize. Don't try to memorize an entire script if you're in a film, because in a film you're going to get to stop, shoot, stop, go back, do that kind of thing. You only have to memorize the whole script when you're in a play. So don't kill yourself at 2 hours worth of stuff, and that saved me. But Holiday Heartbreak, that was my first lead there. But in sitcom, and I've been in Martin, I've been in so many sitcoms, but never the absolute. It means a lot, first of all. It's a lot of responsibility, and you're expected to carry the show. And generally, a sitcom takes 3 to 4 days to shoot a sitcom. We shot 6 episodes in 4 days.
Wow.
And all the words, I had the majority of the words, but it was exciting. It was exhilarating. And our show is called Highly Favored. You might have heard somebody say, how you doing today? They said, well, I'm blessed and highly favored. And I'm the pastor. Imagine that, Z. I am the pastor. My deacon is a great comedian out South Side of Chicago named Rodney Perry. My wife is Kiki Shepard from Apollo fame. And Melanie Camacho's one of the church mothers. And when I say that it is funny and smart and clean and family friendly and it don't preach to you, and it's going to remind you of old-fashioned sitcoms like the show Amen with Sherman Hemsley. It's going to remind you of that type of old-style, old-fashioned, old cool school comedy. It is off the chain. I saw the first episode myself last night, and I'm knocked out by it.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
So, Michael, I'm so glad you brought this up, and I don't want to get political because it drives people apart, but you said it's going to be like an old school comedy like Amen. I was a big fan of the Jeffersons. I was a big fan of All in the Family. Do you feel like where we are as a country, we can start laughing again in shows and comedy? Because it seemed like for a little bit of time, this country was very uptight. I don't know if you had to deal with some of that, in your comedy as far as like when you toured. But you know what I mean? It seemed like everybody was taking things a little too personal. They were a little too serious about life. Do you think comedy can go back to comedy again?
I absolutely do think that, and I think it has to, because the country is more uptight now than it's ever been in our history. And it's not just because of the politics. It's so much stuff. It's economics. Like, have you tried to buy a dozen eggs lately? Man, food's so expensive, it's cheaper to eat the money. And gas? Man, gas prices are so high. The other day, in Los Angeles, the cheapest gas is $6.14, okay? The other day, I had to spend $10 on pump number 2 just so I could drive to pump number 4. So the people are uptight about that. If you don't laugh, you're going to punch somebody in the face. And laughter is healing. If you can laugh through a thing, you can get through a thing. So I really think of comedians as ambassadors of joy. Our job is to lift society, not to beat them up and not to lecture them, but to lift them up and remind them that it's all good. In my case, it's all good because it's all God. But it's all good, man. And if you can see the good in everything and you can laugh a little, man, you could breathe easier. That's why I love doing my concerts. This weekend, I'm at the Star Dome. I'm doing 5 shows. That's in Birmingham, Alabama. So for that 45 minutes I'm on stage, that audience is going to be able to forget all their problems, that they can't quite get that bill paid yet, and that this law is dropping or that law is dropping. They can figure all that. They can just relax and laugh and let it out. And it has been proven medically that you feel better if you laugh more. It creates something within you. The great Norman Cousins, Dr. Norman Cousins, was told he's going to die of cancer in 6 months. First thing he did, he went and got a whole bunch of vitamin C, oranges, orange juice, anything with vitamin C, and he went and got a big screen TV and got all the comedy he could stand. He had Heckle and Jekyll, the Marx Brothers, the Three Stooges, if you name it, and all day long, all he did was watch TV and consume vitamin C. Now, he died anyway, but that was 18 years later, and by then he was a professor at UCLA and had written 7 books, and his first book was how he saved his life by just consuming vitamin C and laughing. His name is Dr. Norman Cousins. So we know that humor will heal you, it'll save you, and if nothing else, it'll put you in a better state of mind.
I believe in it, man. Michael Colyar, the show is called Highly Favored. It's on Impact Network.
All people have to do to find the show is just go on any search engine and put in watchimpact.com. And it'll take you right to the show. WatchImpact.com.
And man, it's been a long time since I've talked to you, since I've seen you, but proud of you. Michael Colyar, Highly Favored, Impact Network, WatchImpact.com.
Thank you for letting me do your show this morning. Have a magnificent weekend.
Thank you, Michael. Take care, man.
Thanks, Zito.
Couple things I took away from the story. Michael Colyar growing up in a rough part of Chicago, the projects. Mom seemed like the real hero, real stable provider for 5 kids. Dad was a oppressor and a good one, but he was drinking up all the money, says Michael. So mom had to be that rock. When talking about some of his early jobs, was working at a grocery store, but then he talked about how he got this gig from this guy, Mr. C. S-E-A-Y. He spelled the name. He remembered it. 12 years old, made $5 an hour, worked 40 hours a week, but this guy taught him how to talk to people. Pretty valuable skill that probably took him to where he is today, in show business. And I guess the most important lesson when talking about his big break, he said it had to be Star Search. He tells the story, he's on the Pat Sajak show, and he kind of mentioned how it didn't really go that well. But some guy said to him after the show, hey, do you want to be on Star Search? And Michael's like, hey, get out of here, man. I've already tried out for Star Search. You said no to me already 2 or 3 times. And the guy's like, shut up. You want to be on Star Search or what? And I guess that guy was the talent booker on Star Search. So you just never know who's watching you. Michael Colyar, 3 1/4 stars. Ed McMahon remind me of Bernie Sanders. And that was his big break. Perform like your life depends on it and never give up. Look what happened to Michael Colyar. You got one shot in this life to make it happen. Really cool guy. Looking forward to checking out his new TV show, Highly Favored, on the Impact Network. And thank you for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. All past episodes and guests are online at celebrityjobber.com, and you can follow youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber or on IG celebrity_jobber_podcast. From the south side of Chicago. Guy didn't even get into show business until he was 30 years old. Now the star of his own sitcom. Pretty great story. Michael Colyar. Again, thank you so much for checking out yet another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Until next time, see you then. Jeff Zito.